fans. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Welcome in On Deck. I'm Tyler Redmond. As always, thank you so much for checking out the channel. I do appreciate it. While you're here, do me a favor. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on here at On Deck and, of course, with the Atlanta Braves. You can also follow me on social media. There are the tags at Tyler Redmond TV on both Twitter and Instagram. Really do appreciate you all tuning in tonight. I know there's obviously the biggest news on the day, and that is that the Braves have indeed signed Sean Murphy to a longer deal. And that is, again, the biggest news on the day. No doubt Sean Murphy is extended. His deal is exactly 6 years and $73 million. That is averaging $12 million and some change per year. He has a $15 million club option for 2029. Now, this does a few things. For one, it makes the Murphy trade make sense. A lot of you guys raised your eyebrows at the Murphy trade, and I understand it. You know, we lost a lot of prospects in that trade, and again, I firmly understand what you were talking about. And as I look at his stats, I look at what he brings to the Braves, you know, I really think he's going to be a fundamental player. At the same time, we also lost an awful lot, namely William Contreras and Kyle Muller, which, again, a lot of you guys did not particularly love it. This will put the Braves right over the luxury tax, as Maverick says in the chat. That puts the Braves payroll at $238 million. It puts the Braves also $3 million past the first luxury tax threshold. That is, of course, as Nakahoma Nation put it on Twitter, pending any 2023 payroll shedding. This move makes sense now, because I told you a long time ago when this first really broke that this trade for Sean Murphy reminded me a lot of the Matt Olson trade last year, because it was, look, if we can get Olson in and we can extend him, then I'm comfortable in losing Christian Pache and Shea Langoliers, right? And we did that. We secured a first baseman for the foreseeable future. Now you bring in a catcher. You have secured him for now 6 years and $73 million, a steal of a deal for any catcher that's going to produce offensively and defensively. $12 million a year is next to nothing. This is a steal at this rate. If you want my honest opinion on it, I think it's a great deal, and I think it says a lot about our front office. A lot of people have come out and questioned Alex Anthopoulos in the last few weeks. Not I don't particularly do that. The deal that I just mentioned, the Sean Murphy deal, wasn't a deal that I absolutely loved. I don't think it was a deal that anybody absolutely loved. Of course, you're losing two major prospects, and plus some, really more than two. You have Tarnick in there, Salinas in there. You have an awful lot that the Braves lost in that trade. But again, you're securing a guy who's going to now be with the Braves for 6 years, and he's a proven commodity. And that is definitely something that I think needs to be at least recognized. This is a guy who's going to come in and perform immediately. Maverick, we'll talk about that in just a minute. I know the Correa situation is obviously pressing all across baseball. We're going to talk about that a little later. I wasn't planning on being here tonight, but being that the news broke, I figured I needed to come address it. Again, I told you a few weeks ago that for this deal to make sense, for the one that I just showed you to make sense, the Braves had to extend Murphy. That's the only way you can justify losing a Contreras, a Muller, a Tarnick, a Salinas in one trade, no matter who the player may be. And the Braves have done that, because the Braves are going to be, again, competing for you look at the expanded playoffs, the Braves are going to be competing for the next decade. They're going to be within the playoff contending teams. And I don't doubt that at all. And to do that, they got to secure players. Now, a lot of people have brought up the fact that Fried is not signed. We'll talk about that at some point or another. But I told you I didn't think the Braves were done, and I still don't think the Braves are done. They are now $3 million over the tax, the luxury tax. I don't think it's I don't think the Braves are done. I think the bullpen could use another guy named Luke Jackson in the mix. But that being said, I truly don't think the Braves are done. The Braves did put out a tweet earlier. I'm going to actually read it to you in just a second about Sean Murphy, and I'll read it to you exactly what they said. Of course, the Braves have yet to comment on it today, but that does not mean that they haven't commented on how much they absolutely love Sean Murphy with the Braves. This is what they said. Quote, the Atlanta Braves today signed catcher Sean Murphy to a 6-year contract worth $73 million. That runs through the 2028 season. That deal includes a $15 million club option with no buyout for 2029. That would give Murphy a 7-year deal worth $88 million. Murphy will make $4 million in 2023, $9 million in 2024, and $15 million in 25 through 28. So again, backloaded, more than likely due to Ozuna's contract. He also, this will make you be a Murphy fan. It'll make anybody a Murphy fan. He agreed to donate 1% of his annual salary to the Atlanta Braves Foundation. So look, I'm just saying this. The guy's a proven commodity. Doesn't get much better. What I will also say is a lot of people have brought up this d'Arnaud conversation, that whether or not d'Arnaud is going to want to play second fiddle. Here's the thing, and I read this article earlier by Jeff Schultz from The Athletic, and this is what I'm going to say about it, right? I don't know if you've seen it. I'm going to read you a blurb from it. d'Arnaud has been Atlanta starting, this is a quote, d'Arnaud has been Atlanta starting catcher for most of the past 3 seasons and started all 32 postseason games since 2020. But Anthopoulos effectively traded 6 players, including all-star DH William Contreras and pitching prospect Kyle Muller for catcher Sean Murphy. And a team doesn't make that kind of deal unless it's for an everyday player. That's fair. d'Arnaud isn't the type to complain publicly, but it seems likely he won't be thrilled with playing backup, and the possibility of a trade remains on the table. He has an active contract, 1 year, $8 million, plus a club option, so dealing him for another asset would not be difficult. That's fair. All of what he just said is fair. What I would argue is that I don't think Travis d'Arnaud is going to want to do that. And the reason I say that, Travis d'Arnaud, as I'm looking right here, is 33 years old. He's not going to have to bend his knees near as much, being a DH most of the time. I think it's a godsend for Travis d'Arnaud to not have to play every day, to be able to pick up more at-bats as DH. Frankly, I think it's a godsend for the Braves to not have to send Marcell Ozuna out as DH every day. I think this is actually a very good thing. I think it fits what the Braves are building currently, and I think Travis d'Arnaud is going to be a perfect backup for Sean Murphy. I don't think second fiddle here is the right way to describe it. I think it's more reorganizing assets. d'Arnaud's bat is nothing to shake at, and I think the fact that you can have Sean Murphy and Travis d'Arnaud both play every day is only going to make the team better. And he mentioned Travis d'Arnaud not wanting to complain publicly. I truly don't see this being an issue. That being said, we're both on the outside. Me and Jeff Schultz are both on the outside. Only they could tell us, but that is what it is. That's where my thoughts on it are. I'm glad that the Braves made this happen. I think it's a fundamentally great deal for the Braves. You cannot complain about it. There's nothing bad you can really say about it. I told you weeks ago again that I thought the Braves were going to extend, and I thought the Braves, would be dumb not to extend. This is a great deal for the Braves to extend Sean Murphy, and again, could not be happier with the way it went down. Of course, I wish I would have happened a little sooner, but again, I think this is a solid move, and again, this is the only way that original deal makes sense. I think that's the only way you get it, because this is not just Sean Murphy for the next couple of seasons. This is Sean Murphy all the way through 2028. So that being said, guys, we're going to open up the floor to you. We don't have any time limit tonight, but not going to be on here forever. Maverick has been busy. I'm going to catch up with you in just a second, but please do remember we have Super Chats, so they are the best way to get in front of the line. Of course, a lot to talk about tonight. Going to talk about pretty much anything and everything you want to talk about, but of course, the biggest news on the day is Sean Murphy, so most of the content will, of course, be about Sean Murphy. Maverick says, here is a deal that we can get. We DFA Ozuna, eat the money, and go get an Jose Iglesias or Profar for shortstop and get Duvall and Pollock and them DH. Well, the more I look at it in terms of DH, I don't think we need another DH. I think the fact that you have both d'Arnaud and now Murphy, I think they're going to rotate between everyday catcher and DH. And I'm sure there will be a day or two where people are taking days off and that kind of thing. But I think the vast majority of games, that's what it's going to be. That's how I look at it right now. I don't think you necessarily need to add a big bat for a DH. I think if you wanted to add a big bat, you'd probably want to do it in left field, and that's where you could go get Duvall or Jurickson Profar or whoever your left field pick is. I think free agency is the best place to do it at this point. So starting it off at the beginning of it, Austin Nocho tunes in first. Thank you for watching. Also, guys, before I get into this, please do remember to like the video and subscribe. Really do appreciate all your support. Of course, we're on late tonight just for you, so please make sure to support us back by liking the video and subscribing. It really does help us out. Austin says, what do you think are reasonable options for left field? Well, it depends what you want to do, right? If you want to trade, there's a million options, but to make this simpler, let's exclude those. For me, I think you have to stay free agency. And, of course, within the Braves roster right now, you do have Eddie Rosario and Marcell Ozuna, so you have to consider those as options. But if you want to go the free agency route, the best one out there right now is Jerickson Profar. If you wanted to go a little lighter, Adam Duvall would be my pick. I think with team chemistry and history, I think that's where I would go if you're not going to try to improve it, if you just want to keep it. You're already past the luxury tax. You probably want to keep it down a little bit. Adam Duvall would be my pick in free agency if it's not Jerickson Profar. That being said, I think Eddie Rosario is probably going to be the opening day left fielder the closer we get to it. I don't believe they're done, but as I'm literally looking at the Braves position player options in front of me. You have a lot of guys that are competing to make the roster in the outfield. Sam Hilliard, Jordan Luplow, Luis Diaz. I mean, that's an infielder, but you get my point. There's a lot of guys that are going to be competing in spring training, Marcell Ozuna included, that are going to be competing to make the roster. So that being said, that would be what I would say. But thank you for commenting. I really do appreciate it. Tice Thompson, chances on us signing Nelly Cruz. I would say more if we didn't already have Ozuna. I mean, look, I would love to pay Nelly Cruz the league minimum. The dude's going to be in the Hall of Fame, no doubt about it, and he's still performing at the age he's at. But, yeah, I would love for that to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen with all of the chaos that is the mix-up in our outfield right now. You already have two spots that are occupied. And when I say outfield, obviously Nelson Cruz would be a DH, but hear me out. You have two spots in the outfield that are occupied. You already have the mix at bats between Rosario, Ozuna, and whoever your DH is, which will likely be a catcher rotation with Murphy and d'Arnaud. Really, Ozuna sticks out. It could happen. The Braves could eat Ozuna's contract, trade him for something, and then sign Nelly Cruz to the league minimum. But I think it's a bit unlikely. You also have 29 other teams that are going to be looking for his services. So I think it's a bit unlikely, unfortunately. Michael Carey says, I am more worried at shortstop. I don't think you should be, to tell you the truth, Michael. You have a guy there that is not a proven commodity, but he's going to be surrounded by guys who are phenomenal. Of course, Ozzie Albies will be returning. Austin Riley had a great year last year. Matt Olson had a phenomenal year. I think you're going to have an infield that's going to be stacked no matter what. Obviously, the loss of Dansby is not exactly ideal, but I don't think you're going to miss a step with Vaughn Grissom. I think if there's any young star that can handle the pressure, it has been Vaughn up until this point. Of course, we all know that Ron Washington, as seen in the video, has just raved about Vaughn Grissom. So in terms of its defense, I mean, it's not going to be Dansby, but I don't think there's reason to be worried. In terms of his offense, I think it's going to be outshadowed by the rest of the team. I mean, I think everybody else is going to help carry that load, and I think that's all you can ask. That being said, I believe we have a super chat from Maverick. Yes, we do. He says, you're going to have to pay two players before spring training, go on IL. That opens up two spots. So I'd say get the shortstop done and get Duvall in left field and Pollock DH. You could have two players in spring training go on IL. The shortstop is done. It's going to be Vaughn Grissom. I don't think the Braves, if the Braves had any desire to go get another shortstop, they would have done it, I think, with Dansby. I don't think they have any desire to go get Correa at the moment. There's enough problems there anyway. Duvall in left field, I don't mind. Pollock DH, I don't mind. But again, I think you have too much already in the mix. And look, I broke down the 26-man today. Okay? Here, let me try to flip this around. This is literally what the video was going to be tomorrow, and I still may do that, so stay tuned. But look, the way I see it is this. You have one open spot in the rotation, obviously. You have one open spot in the bullpen. You have 11 guys plus competing for those positions. For the everyday players, you have 3 open spots. You have 7 or 8 guys already competing for those 3 spots. So I'm just saying, Yes, there's room to grow. There's guys that you can live without. Obviously, Sam Hiller, Jordan Luplow, Luis Diaz, Hoy Park, Braden Shoemake, Chadwick Tromp even. They're all guys that Marcelo Zuna even. They're all guys that you can live without. But what I am telling you is this. I don't believe the Braves are going to go out and get a DH. I think there's enough guys in the game itself to already fix that. I think you really want to go after left field. And that's what I believe they'll do. If that's Duvall, if it's Jurickson Profar, if it's somebody that's already on the roster, who knows? But that's how I view it. Nick Nodelman. Fried is going to California after 2024, and that's fine. Reynolds' deal is the last piece needed. We'd be so stacked, including Grissom full-time. Look, I've made it clear I would absolutely love to get Reynolds. The problem is we don't exactly have a ton left in the minors that we could trade. I mean, you're talking about a team who's looking for 2 elite prospects, and after we traded William Contreras and Kyle Muller, I don't know that we even have anything that could argue to be elite. And I mean that with all due respect to everybody we have in the minors. The problem is, I believe we still have a few diamonds in the rough down there. We're talking about a farm system that just produced Vaughn Grissom and Michael Harris. Plus not to mention our pitching prospects and Bryce Elder and Ian Anderson. And Kyle Muller came out of that. So I'm just saying, I think there's diamonds in the rough there that we probably don't even know how good they are yet, but other teams are going to look at them like a number, and that just is what it is. So it's hard to convince another team that doesn't know these guys, that doesn't see these guys, that all they're going to see is their number. A lot of people are going to mention Jared Schuster. That is certainly a guy that could, but that's one guy in the minors, and it's not necessarily enough to get Reynolds, especially when you're competing with other teams who are obviously going to want Reynolds. So I don't know that it's possible. Of course, I would love to get him, but I don't know that we have what it takes to make that happen. That being said, really do appreciate all you guys tuning in again. Thank you to all the super chats. Obviously, those help us out a ton. I like to answer your questions as best I can. Please do remember, though, to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and, of course, you can follow me right there on your screen at Tyler Redmond TV on Twitter and Instagram. That really does help us grow. And look, if you want to follow along, if you want to know when we go live, see behind the scenes stuff, that kind of thing, you can do that. Follow me, basically, on Twitter and Instagram. The big news this week, if you want to follow me, I will be headed out to the Peach Bowl, which is, of course, the Georgia Bulldogs versus the Ohio State Buckeyes. If Georgia wins, they go on to the national championship. I know I have a lot of Georgia fans in the chat rooting for you guys because there'll be some bigger news if they win for me. So pulling for you, but we'll see what happens, of course, this weekend. But again, please do follow me, Tyler Redmond TV, on Twitter and Instagram. Austin says, do you expect Fried to sign this season, or do you expect a repeat of Freeman and Swanson? It's hard to say with Fried, right? I think the obvious answer is I expect a repeat. That being said, I again tip my hat to Jeff Schultz, who spoke about it today. He basically said that it's clearly about money, and being that he is 3 weeks away from turning 29, you're going to have Alex Anthopoulos be a little wary of giving a big-time deal to that guy. And look, as much as Fried has given us, Alex Anthopoulos has a philosophy that he lives by. If that is the case, you have to respect it. If Fried decides to go out and get the biggest paycheck he can get, all credit to him. I understand. That being said, if there's one guy that I would pay the money for, it would be the guy that pitched Game 6 of the World Series. It just would be. But, again, I'm also not the guy in the GM's chair. I would also say that with Fried, it's really tough because you've now paid a lot of money to a guy in Spencer Strider who's much younger, much less proven. As good of a year as he's had, he's far less proven than what Fried is. And you're going to have to convince Fried to take that check, even though it was much later than what Strider got. I would also argue that's what Schultz's argument was, and it's fair, but I would also argue that I doubt that the Braves have not tried to lock up Fried. I highly doubt that Alex Anthopoulos has not attempted to call Fried on the phone and ask about an extension. As good as he's been since Soroka went down and he really took the team forward, I would just be very surprised if Alex Anthopoulos did not already offer Max Fried an extension. Now, that being said, that does not mean that Max Fried had to take said extension, right? That doesn't mean that had to happen. And it's not even going to be that Max Fried denied it. You're not going to, you don't know what's going on. He may have denied it, but it's not going to necessarily get out publicly. We're not going to necessarily know everything. Jeff Schultz isn't necessarily going to know the dealings between Double A and Max Fried and his agent or whoever it may be. You're never going to know the ins and outs. So I would again be surprised if that conversation hasn't already happened, especially when you look at the long list of guys on the roster who have already gotten these deals. Namely Ronald Acuna Jr., Michael Harris, Ozzie Albies, Matt Olson, Austin Riley. I mean, does Max Fried not fit in that list? I think he does. So Spencer Strider, I think Max Fried has done plenty to deserve a long-term extension, but it doesn't always happen. And it's for a multitude of reasons. It could be reasons on the Braves side, reasons on Fried's side, but I think it's likely more reasons on Fried's side. Thank you for that question, though. Landon, is Duvall a realistic option? I think he is. I think he's your most realistic option currently in free agency. And I'll put it that way. With what you look at with the history, the ups and downs, whatever they may be, I think it's ultimately the most realistic option. Because, look, Jurickson Profar is your best left fielder out there right now in free agency. A lot of teams are going to be going after him. I think the Braves could lock down Duvall with far less money, and it would be a little easier to convince Duvall to stay home, if that makes sense. Let's see. William Fulgham says time to trade for Reynolds and extend him for 7 years. I agree. It would be phenomenal to get him, but, I don't think it's going to happen as much as I would like it to. Austin Nocho says, do you think the Braves are done spending money this offseason? Well, I don't know, because if they could shed some money in some trades, of course, look, if it went the Jeff Schultz way and they traded d'Arnaud, that's $8 million gone this year, right? So it depends. I think if it stays like it is, they may be done. But they could do a lot with, little. They could go out and get Duvall for a few couple of million, and yeah, it'd still be over the luxury tax, but not much more. So I think there's a lot of things they can do. I think it's a conversation that's basically going to be, okay, if we're going to go past the luxury tax, how far are we going to go past it, right? Because they've already crossed the first barrier of the luxury tax, if I'm not mistaken. Are they going to cross the second one, right? What is as much as they could do within that realm? We all know that Terry McGuirk came out last year and said the Braves want to be in the top 5 payroll. We're starting to see a little more of that here, I think, with these extensions more than anything. And I think that's what you have to look at and say, okay, well, yeah, they may not be going after every free agent, but they sure are extending the guys that they got. And I think, again, the fact that they're paying Sean Murphy $4 million this year, $5 million next year, and it goes a little higher as time goes on, obviously points to the fact that Marcell Ozuna's contract is so overpaid that it's limiting everybody else. Because it's not just Murphy. Strider's contract is structured the exact same way. Strider's making $1 million this year. Okay? He's getting paid later on, guaranteed money, but it's backloaded. And it's because Ozuna's contract was backloaded, and when you look at it, Ozuna's not performing. They had to lock these guys down, but they couldn't pay them equally per year as they probably would have liked. Leslie says, I do believe the Braves will extend Fried to a 6-year, $140 million contract. Again, if there's anybody that the Braves should extend, I would argue that it was Fried over Swanson. I think that, but we'll have to see how it plays out. Richard Davis says, let's send Pittsburgh, Fried and Ozuna for Reynolds and Bednar. For one, I don't think Pittsburgh has any interest in taking Ozuna. For two, I don't think the Braves have any interest in trading for Fried, as long as they're competitive. They would be dumb to trade Fried at this point. The guy's been the crux of the starting rotation. As I look towards our starting rotation now, I mean, there's plenty to play with there, being that you start the year with a solid top 4 in Max Fried, Kyle Wright, Spencer Strider, and Charlie Morton. with a 5th spot being competed over between Mike Soroka, Colby Allard, Ian Anderson, Bryce Elder, and Waskari Noah. You have a lot to play with, even though, even that said, I don't want to trade Fried. I just don't see that making sense, in my opinion. Let's see. Robert Wilson says, guess Alex doesn't trade for big players unless he plans to sign them long term. I wouldn't say that. But I do think there is something to what you just said, because the Matt Olson deal, the trade that happened where we extended, it is much easier to. And so that being said, we'll play it out and see what happens. But am I back? Am I good? I think I'm good. Sorry, I believe we had some technical difficulties there. Hopefully I'm good to go. That being said, we are going to tune right back in. I believe we do have a super chat. Need to send cash to Pirates for Reynolds. Look, I mean, it'd be a heck of a paycheck. Maverick says Pirates are looking for starting pitching for Reynolds, but do we have Tonkin, Ian Anderson, and consider prospect the Mets did DFA Woods today? Oh, man. So, how do I put this? I know everybody's going to be talking about Reynolds. Look, if it happens, I'll be thrilled. At this point, I'm not holding my breath. That's kind of where I'm at. I don't think that it's necessarily a good. I don't know, because again, you mentioned trading Tonkin, Ian Anderson, and you can send a prospect. But again, is it a prospect you want to send? Because you don't know what these negotiations are. I'll tell you firsthand that I think the Pirates are a very weird organization when it comes to trades. This is the same team that wouldn't trade Bednar at the deadline. This is the same team who wouldn't trade Reynolds a couple years ago, and they're not competing for the foreseeable future. They won't trade Reynolds even though he wants to get out of there as quickly as he can. So I look at it, and I think they're a very weird organization. I also look at it and say, hey, look, yeah, the Braves, it would be nice to get Reynolds, but there's a majillion other teams that probably want him too. So I'm just saying, yes, I'd like him, but I don't want to pay the farm for Reynolds. As much as I do like him, I don't want to give up everything for him. CJ, thank you, Robert. CJ says, AA needs to make Max a forever Brave. CJ, I get that. I'm right there with you, brother. But at the same time, I look at it and I say, yeah, but what's the future? Is Max Fried going to be a part of the future? Or is he going to want too much money to be a part of the future? I would like him to be back. I'd like him to stay. But again, we're a couple years away from it. We'll, of course, analyze that when the time comes up. But till then, we'll see. Johnny T says, Mike Soroka, comeback player of the year. You heard it here first, and like the video. Yeah, listen to Johnny T. Listen to Johnny T, because Johnny T knows what he's talking about. Like the video. That really does help us out. Of course, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. It truly does help us out. I really do appreciate that, Johnny T. And on what you said, Mike Soroka being the comeback player of the year, you know as well as I do that I would absolutely love for that to happen. We, of course, took the trip and went up to see Mike Soroka pitch live in Rome. This is his first game back. I took the trip as the moment I knew he was going. We had to go. So, yeah, we're of course rooting for Soroka here. No doubt about it. I would love for him to make that comeback, and of course we'll have to see what happens. I would not be surprised at all, if Mike Soroka came back and won comeback player of the year. I don't know. There's a better story. If the guy had a decent year, coming off what he's come from, 2 years not in the league. Look, I don't care if he's our 5th best starter. I don't care if he's a decent reliever. The guy's been through enough. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Soroka won the comeback player of the year. I remember Johnny Venters won it a few years ago. There's a ball up there behind me signed by Johnny Venters. I'll tell you a quick story. I know we got a lot of chats tonight, but any Braves fan that's been a Braves fan for a long time will appreciate this story. If you remember Johnny Venters when he first came through, this is back in the years with him and Tommy Hanson and Craig Kimbrell were the crux of our bullpen. Johnny Venters, when I was about 10 years old, signed a baseball for me. It's up on that shelf. And as much as I appreciate it, his first game back with the Braves back in 2018, 2019, whenever that was, he signed another baseball for me. I want to say it's right there. I had him sign at 3.5 Tommy Johns down. Okay, the guy went through 3.5 Tommy Johns, and he looked at me. He's like, "Really? You want me to sign it that way?" I'm like, "Yeah, I want you to sign it that way." And of course, he went on to win the Comeback Player of the Year in a phenomenal season. And look, I would love to see Mike Soroka follow those footsteps. I would absolutely love it. That being said, you guys have been awesome tonight. Not going anywhere just yet. But again, I'm just going to have to start at the bottom and go from there. You guys have been very active in the chat tonight. Keep that up. It really does help us out. We really do appreciate that. And you guys are the reason that we are continuing to grow. That being said, you guys have been incredible tonight. Again, the biggest news on the day is, of course, Sean Murphy has been extended. And look, whether you like this or not, or whether you like the original trade or not, you have to appreciate AA making this extension happen. He at least went through with it, made the extension happen, believed in what he did. And look, I don't think very many of us at all loved this original deal. I don't think any of us said, oh, yes, absolutely, get rid of Contreras, get rid of Kyle Muller for Sean Murphy. But again, when you get a guy to commit to the system, when you get a guy to say, yes, I'm going to be here for the next 6 years, then it makes it worth it. And look, I really think we're all going to like this Sean Murphy guy. I really think we're going to like him. And the fact that he's going to play the majority of the behind the plate, I know that's going to turn some people off because of how much d'Arnaud is appreciated in these parts. But again, I think he's going to be a fundamental part of what the future will be. Yeah, Robert, I kind of caught a notification over there on that other screen that I had lost signal. I'm keeping an eye on it. Please keep me updated if something happens. Technology's great till it doesn't work. I can't really control it. Glad I didn't have to restart. Glad it picked up and we kept going. Let me see. I'm not sure quite what you're saying here. I lost signal during big player trade. I don't remember what I was talking about. Sorry about that. Let me see. Gate of Divine. Soroka is going to be a could have been. Too many injuries. Well, Gate of Divine, I think a little bit more positively. I hope that's not the case. Of course, it very well could be. But I think the confidence that the Braves are showing in him says otherwise to me. Now, again, look, if something else happens, you can only predict. You can only predict so far. But look, I try to predict positively. There's a reason that the Braves are holding on hope because this guy is immensely talented, no doubt about it. And when he's on, he's on. And it's really just that simple. I mean, the guy was everything Max Fried has been these past few years when he was on his game. And look, I tend to hope that he's going to be just right there back where he was. Landon asks a very good question. Do you think Kirby Yates will bounce back? Very good question. I was building this, and Vision Music Works, I saw your comment too. I was building this earlier. This was going to be my next video, but I guess I can kind of break a little bit of it out now. Basically trying to break down what the Braves have in the 40-man, simplifying that down and making it presentable to you. What do the Braves actually have, right? So for the bullpen, Kirby Yates has got to be a fundamental part. And I really do think he can bounce back. The guy's been good when he is. But I look at it, and this is the way I look at it. Right now, let's say you go 13-13, 13 position players, 13 pitchers. 4 starting pitchers solidified. Max Fried, Kyle Wright, Spencer Strider, Charlie Morton with a 5th spot ready to go. That leaves you 8 spots in the bullpen, 7 of which I believe are already pretty much spoken for. Raisel Iglesias, A.J. Minter, Colin McHugh, Joe Jimenez, Dylan Lee, Jackson Stevens now, glad to see him back by the way, Kirby Yates, and then you got one more that has not been spoken for. Competing for that one last job, Seth Elledge, Michael Tonkin, Darius Vines, Roddery Munoz, Dennis Santana, Nick Anderson, of course Tyler Matzik is injured, he's out for 2023. I think you could add Luke Jackson to that list. I think he fits the bill more than any of the guys I just mentioned. If Matzik wasn't hurt, I disagree. But I think if you add Luke Jackson, whether it's a 1-year deal, 2-year deal, whatever it is, that's who I would like to see in that list. Now, I think it's a matter of time if you want to know my honest opinion, but I think that needs to happen. But, yeah, Vision Music Works. Any news on any new pitching prospects, bullpen or otherwise? The biggest pitching prospect I can tell you is right now would probably be Jared Schuster. Although, of course, around these parts, around On Deck, we have a guy who we're actually going to check in with next week. I'm actually texting back and forth with him right now. Cole Phillips, which, by the way, if you have not seen the interview with Cole Phillips, we're doing a road to the show. Cole got drafted last year during the season, earlier in the year. We interviewed him right after that, really, and Cole is an outstanding just an outstanding person and an outstanding baseball player. 6'4", could throw 100 miles an hour. Is coming off of Tommy John, but don't be surprised if Cole Phillips breaks through the barrier and becomes our next big bullpen reliever or starter, wherever he may be. If you ask Cole, he would tell you he's a starter, though. That's if I'm going to point you in a direction, I'm going to point you towards Cole Phillips. But make sure to go check out that interview if you have not already. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Wade Lamb, you ask a good question. Who becomes the locker room leader with Dansby gone? Well, a lot of people have brought this up. Jeff Schultz brought it up. Dave O'Brien has brought it up. Alex Anthopoulos has talked about it. Many analysts on MLB Network have talked about it. It's been I've talked about it plenty. This is what I think, right? I'm looking at the roster. I keep finding myself, because it's in front of me, looking at the roster. I apologize. But I see many guys that could be locker room leaders, okay, that have every potential in the world to be locker room leaders. Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Ozzie Albies, Max Fried. And you know what? I would even venture to say at one day Michael Harris. And maybe even Ronald Acuna, depending on where that is. But right now, if you ask me for this season, what I would say, my most likely candidate would be Ozzie Albies. And you may not like that. That may not be your pick, but that's what I would say. It doesn't have to be an everyday player. It could be a pitcher. It could be, the bullpen. I would argue that in 2021, the bullpen was a big candidate for team leader. I think if you're looking long-term for team leader, Michael Harris has that build-up. I think Austin Riley has that build-up. But at the same time, there's so many different nuances to baseball, right? You got position players, you got pitchers, you got infielders, outfielders, it's starters, relievers. Look, there's a lot of leaders on the team, right? I look in the outfield and I see a guy who has won a Silver Slugger, has been an All-Star, and Ronald Acuna has been Rookie of the Year. I look at another guy who's been Rookie of the Year, and Michael Harris now. And, who cares who's the leader between those two guys? I look at the infield. I see Olsen. I see Riley. I see Ozzie Albies, right? I see now behind the plate d'Arnaud, Sean Murphy. All these guys can be leaders. It doesn't have to be that one guy is the sheriff, pun intended. But I think that it's going to be a team. I don't think it's going to be a one guy. There's only one leader on that team, and his name is Brian Snitker. That's how I feel about it. But, I could be wrong. There may be a guy that comes out and just takes charge. And you know what? I'm not going to get in his way. But I don't think it has to necessarily be that. Greg Harris says Soroka is going to play and stay healthy. He has rehabbed well. I'm stoked on his return. Me too. There is not a better person in baseball, if you want my honest opinion on it. That's truly how I feel. That being said, guys, again, thank you for tuning in tonight. Really do appreciate it. Not going anywhere just yet. Going to be here a little while longer. But please do me a favor. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay updated with everything we have going on here. You're not going to want to miss this interview with Cole Phillips next week. We're checking in with him before he reports to spring training, getting an update on his recovery from Tommy John and what his future could hold. That is going to be I can't wait to catch up with Cole. Again, if you don't know Cole, that interview is on the channel. Just search his name. It'll come right up. But yeah, just a phenomenal kid. And you guys, if you don't already know him, you can get to know him in that interview. I can't wait to touch base with him. I'm sure he's doing great things. And we're planning on next week. That's tentative. But again, we're going to check in with him next week. You're not going to want to miss it. So make sure to subscribe. all that good stuff. And, of course, you can follow me on social media right there. We give you updates. We tell you what's going on. Of course, on Twitter, I retweet a lot of things that you might find interesting, being that you are Braves fans and baseball fans in general. So that being said, please follow me there and all of that good stuff. All right, we got a few more minutes. Probably going to be here till right around midnight. Then I'm clocking out. Busy night tonight. I know Sean Murphy got a lot of our attention, and I really do appreciate you guys tuning in. Newman says, heading into work, go Braves. Good signing. Thank you, Newman, for watching. Newman, my thing with Newman is always the old Seinfeld thing. The hello, Newman. Forgot to do it today, but hello, Newman, and goodbye, Newman. Yeah, go Braves, and yes, I would agree. It's a good signing. Nick Nodelman says, Albies getting on Ozuna was a thing of beauty. I would agree. He also says 2-year deal with Matzik was a very classy move. Yeah, that's the thing no one really talks about, right? Like, no one really talks about. You're talking about Tyler Matzik, who is injured and out for 2023, but he's the same guy who I think single-handedly shut down the Dodgers in their tracks in 2021. Yeah, I completely agree. CJ Lapel, did the Braves hire a new PA announcer yet? I have not heard. If you ask me, no one could touch Casey. Casey Motter is the guy that, of course, is on my intro. He was a good friend of mine. You know, when he passed, that was a very sad day for me and, of course, his family and, of course, just the entire Braves community for sure. That was a very sad day for sure. And I know they're looking for his replacement. Everybody, has to get a replacement at some point. But, yeah, I have not heard an update. I was looking to see if I still had Casey's logo in here. I do not. Yeah, again, Casey's on the intro. And you know what? He was nice enough to do that. And miss him now more than you know. But thanks for asking. I really do appreciate it. Richard Davis says, Minter, Lee, McHugh, Iglesias, Jimenez, Yates are set for the pen. Need a lefty and long relief. Well, Jackson Stevens is your long relief. That's your long relief, Richard. Of course, they signed that yesterday. And for lefty, I don't disagree there. Of course, I've mentioned about 10 names earlier that are competing for that. And, of course, somebody may pop out. You got to replace Matzik is who I assume you're referring to. Yeah, they got to figure that out. But again, I wouldn't mind just getting Luke Jackson. I know he's a righty. I wouldn't mind that, honestly. Michael Harvin says that's a good deal for the Braves, but I think Murphy could have done better. Of course he could have done better. This is a chance for Murphy to do better right now on the team he just got signed to long term. So I think that's kind of where we're at. Danilo says, have you seen that we are the team with the most projected wins? I kind of have to bite my tongue here because I have, for years, said don't believe the projected wins. Just stop it. Don't buy into that. And it's usually because the Braves have been so overlooked. And now I don't really know what to do. I would say let's not buy in too much to that. The game's still got to be played. Josh Gillum, any chance at Correa? There's always a chance, So you're saying there's a chance? No, I am not. I don't believe so. And look, I could be wrong. I just don't think that's where the Braves are going to spend their money. They've already gone over the luxury tax. I don't think it really makes sense, being that they've built up that if they weren't willing to pay Swanson $140, I don't think they're going to be willing to pay Correa whatever. I mean, I don't know what's going on with this leg thing. I don't know, but I don't know. It's an interesting development. I don't know what the Mets got going on there. Steve Cohen is just going berserk. But no, I don't think there's a legit chance. And to be honest with you, I don't think there's much of a chance, like Danilo says. I don't think there's a chance for Reynolds at this point. I think the Braves are pretty much going to be what they are right now. But I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. I think they could do a lot by losing some. But, we'll see. William Fulgham says Tyler Redmond for Braves PA. As much as I appreciate that, I do not have that talent. I do not have that voice talent as much as I wish I did. But if the Braves call, I would certainly answer. I'd be honored to do that. Corey Carter says, I'll take Grissom for what we are paying him versus what the Mets are going to pay Correa over the life of that contract. Well, see, Corey, that's the point, right? Like, A lot of people have made a big deal. Oh, Vaughn Grissom is this, Vaughn Grissom is that, Vaughn Grissom isn't this, he isn't that. Look, he's not Correa. He's not. He is Vaughn Grissom. He may be phenomenal in a couple of years, right? We don't know. But what we are paying him versus whatever they're going to pay him, the $30 million they're going to pay him a year or whatever, I'll take my chances, much like you said. Maverick says there is Andrew Chaffin, or Chaffin, I never know how to say his name, out there on free agency. He's out there. I don't know that the Braves are going to necessarily spend the money, but we'll see. He's always a name that seems to come up in trade talks and that kind of thing. I'm pretty familiar with him. Yeah, it could happen. I don't know for sure, though. We'll see. Richard Davis says Jackson has options left, so he will start in minor leagues. I think he may start minor leagues, but I don't think you're going to keep him there. Not with how much he performed last year in long relief. He never really had a bad performance in his little introductory tweet they had earlier today. I'm going to read it to you as well. Sorry. They mentioned how many times he basically came out, and I think he had 13 different times where, let me see, I'm going to read this exactly so I make sure I get it right. Stevens got more than 3 outs in 13 different relief appearances last season and went a season-high 3 1/3 innings on July 24th versus Los Angeles, and his 13 relief outings of more than 1 inning tied for the third most with the Braves with Dylan Lee and Colin McHugh and Jesse Chavez. So, look, I think that's a guy that can really give you some long relief, and I think that's a big get for the Braves. I'm not saying they're done. Jesse Chavez is out there, of course. Luke Jackson is out there as well. I think there's more to be done, but we'll see how it goes. I don't know that he's necessarily going to start in the minors, but we'll see. But he does have options left. I will give you that. That being said, guys, it seems like the chat is winding down, and I'm going to wind down with it. So here's what we're going to do. Again, on your way out, please do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, all of that stuff. And, of course, you can follow me on social media at Tyler Redmond TV there on Twitter and Instagram. I'm going to answer this last question from Danilo. I hope I say your name right. I probably don't. What are your expectations with Colby Allard? Colby Allard, if you remember a few years ago, was right there with Kyle Wright. Right? He was right there at that same time. He was a big prospect. We traded to Texas. I can't remember what we got back for him exactly, but I do remember that it was a big it was, I can't remember what it was. But anyway, he was supposed to be a very good starting pitcher, much like I would compare him to like a Bryce Elder. Maybe not quite that highly touted, but he was right there. And he went to Texas. Texas, of course, they're going crazy now, but Texas back then was kind of the dumps. You know, it wasn't really great. Didn't really have a ton of success in Texas. Of course, his ERA skyrocketed and never really found his groove in the majors. I think Colby Allard could get a new lease on life in Atlanta, you know, with our pitching staff and that kind of thing. I really think, you know, it could make a difference. Now, of course, time will tell. We'll have to see. But, you know, we'll see. Andrew H. brings up a good point about Jackson. Luke Jackson, he says that he may not be back till the All-Star break. You know, we'll see. We'll see. Zach Britton would be nice, but I don't know. I think he'd probably command too much money. Brandon Harris, is that a Jacob Burgess painting behind you? It is. In fact, I actually interviewed Jacob a few years ago. He's talking about King Griffey Jr. back there. Give me just a second. I'll try to show you. If I can adjust this on the fly. Let's see. Can we do this? Oh, can I do it? Can I do it? I'm going to pan. Watch this, guys. It's going to be a magic trick. All right. He's talking about King Griffey Jr. up there. Of course, I'm now at the bottom of the screen. You know what? I got a minute. This is going to be the last little thing on the show tonight. That is King Griffey Jr. That is drawn that way. That is King Griffey Jr. That is drawn by Jacob Burgess. I interviewed Jacob a few years ago. He's nice enough to give me that King Griffey Jr. along with a Hank Aaron over there. But I'll give you a little tour real quick. If you remember the letter from Jock Peterson that he wrote, I had this custom made over my right shoulder right here. I had this custom made. That is the entirety of the letter, and of course, "We Are Those" is at the bottom, and I had him sign it earlier this year. Very nice of him to do that. Hank Aaron is, of course, right here on canvas. That is also signed on his right shoulder. Ted Williams is next to him. Ric Flair, of all people, is above Ted Williams, and it just goes on from there. But yeah, that's pretty much it for behind me. I know sometimes we kind of cut that off and you don't really see it, but that is who's behind me. And one of these days, I'm going to sit down and just show you every darn autograph I got. But that being said, guys, again, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Really do appreciate you. And, look, we're going to have a lot of content. Don't forget about the interview with Cole Phillips next week. We are going to have that, so please make sure to tune in for that. And, of course, if you do me the favor before you go anywhere and like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. If you put in a super chat tonight, I had a lot of them. Thank you. It really does help the channel. And, of course, you can follow me on social media right there. Tyler Redmond TV on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you guys for watching. Jameson, you got it here late, but it's okay, buddy. I'm not mad at you. Watch the replay. We'll see you here next time right here at On Deck.